When was the last time you had a disagreement with someone and it actually brought you closer together instead of tearing something apart? Greetings, I'm Osha Cerese, your dream doula, supporting you on birthing the life, love, and business you desire. This is your journaling prompt of the week, so grab your pen, paper, pencil, pad, or the notes app of your phone and let's get started. This week we're talking about conflict resolution. I want to know, when was the last time conflict felt safe to you? Let's explore a time in your life when you were able to actually say how you feel to someone and they stayed. They stayed to listen. They weren't trying to win. They weren't trying to shut you down. And they actually understood where you were coming from. If you're struggling to answer any of the questions I've presented so far, or you're struggling to remember a scenario of when this has ever happened to you, this journaling prompt is for you. What does healthy conflict look like to me? And have I ever experienced it? Most of us were never really taught what healthy conflict is and what it looks like. We weren't sat down and we didn't have a formal discussion about healthy conflict resolution. We just saw it being modeled by the adults around us. We saw the arguments. We saw people raising their voice. We saw shouting matches. We saw slamming doors or, silent treatments. And we might have even seen some violence. Or was that just me? And it doesn't mean just your parents or the people that are in your household that are raising you. This could be adults in the streets, outside, at school, just in everyday situations. So if you were never sat down to understand truly what healthy conflict resolution is, once you get into relationships, you're pretty much just winging it. And so is your partner. Even getting into arguments with kids growing up, your friends, your siblings, your cousins, does anyone actually sit down and get you to communicate clearly, to listen, to understand, to hear the other perspective? It's usually just be quiet, stop all that arguing, y'all gonna get along, hug it out. And then next thing you know, you're growing up and you're having disagreements with other people your age, your peers, your coworkers, your friends, your cousins, your siblings still. And you struggle with getting the conflict resolved because when were you ever taught the proper way to resolve conflict, or a healthy way or an effective way to resolve conflict? And some people avoid conflict altogether. I've been there, done that, where you're not confrontational because you don't like conflict. You don't want to deal with it, or you don't want to cause harm to a relationship that you value. But avoiding conflict doesn't resolve anything. You still have those feelings. You just bury them, and then it can become bitterness, resentment, or maybe even distrust and dislike. And it might happen to make you explode at the wrong time. So that's not an effective way of resolving conflict either. We have to face it. I know in my own personal experience with witnessing conflict as a child growing up, I would usually see two different dynamics: either two very aggressive people going head to head, arguing, shouting, going off, reading each other down, cussing each other out, and it may escalate to physical violence or threats or police being called. Or I saw the dynamic of a very aggressive person with a very passive person, and the aggressive person overpowering the conversation, belittling the other person, not allowing them to get a word in edgewise, and the other person shrinking or trying to de-escalate the problem and really biting their tongue on a lot of the things that they felt. Neither of these situations were a very great example for me when it comes to resolving conflict either, because when you have two super aggressive people and nobody is able to de-escalate, nobody is able to regulate their own emotions, it becomes a very hostile environment and nothing gets resolved, especially when there's other people that have to come in and intervene. And then when there's one super aggressive person, loud, expressive person with a passive person who is non-confrontational and wants to calm the situation down, that person often gets left unheard and the problem doesn't really get resolved. It just gets swept under the rug and it continues to repeat. And for me personally, witnessing these different dynamics created a sense of fear of abandonment, feeling like if there's a conflict, there's a possibility that someone will leave you or throw you away, or they no longer want to be in your life because you have this disagreement that explodes. When in actuality, it is possible to disagree with someone or to even argue with them and still have love and still have respect for one another and to be able to resolve it in a healthy way. Healthy conflict requires safety on both ends. Both people have to feel safe enough to be honest, to feel heard, to express themselves without feeling like they'll be interrupted or punished for how they feel, without having to walk on eggshells, without having to bite their tongue. They can truly be transparent and be forward in whatever they need to discuss and feel safe in doing so. And as challenging as it might be, you can't keep score. My mom often asks the question, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? And I'd be like, I want to be right. But no, as I've evolved, I realized that in disagreement and in relationship with people, whether it's friends, family, or your romantic partner, there's going to be times where you might just have to agree to disagree. You may have to allow someone to feel like their perspective is the right way, even if you don't necessarily rock with it, and not dummying yourself down or making them feel like what you're saying is not valid, but just holding space for it, allowing it to breathe, and listening to it. Sometimes you just have to listen. You got to try your hardest not to be dismissive, cutting people off, cutting them down, tearing them down, insulting them, being dismissive in any type of way, regardless of how frustrated you are, is definitely going to bring toxicity to the conversation. So try not to be dismissive. I'm working on that too. And then, of course, one of the biggest part of conflict resolution is repair. You have to continue to do the work after the conversation. If there's an apology that needs to be said, go ahead and say it. Accountability needs to be taken. What steps are you working on to make sure that you have actually resolved the conflict and not just talked about it? Like, what are we doing to come back together? And again, every argument, you might not agree at the end. Agree to disagree. Just make sure each other feels understood, valued, and respected and heard, and figure out how you're going to move forward in the agree to disagree scenario. This is a two-part question. What does healthy conflict look like to you? So get out your writing tools and be specific. Write down everything. How can you resolve conflict with someone and still feel safe, still feel loved, still feel like you're not thrown away? What does that look like? How is it managed? What is the setting like? Are you all sitting face to face? Are you all talking it out? Are you all writing each other a letter? What would be the best ideal situation for you when it comes to resolving conflict? Second part is, have you ever experienced it? Think of some situations that you actually left out of the disagreement, feeling heard and understood and safe, still feeling love, not feeling torn apart from the relationship, but feeling closer, feeling like the conflict was actually resolved. And what were the elements that were included in that conversation or in that situation that helped you feel that way? And if you haven't ever felt that way after a disagreement, and this is with friends, family, coworkers, relationships, romantic relationships, any type of dynamic, what was the piece that was missing? What could have helped those situations feel healthier when you were resolving conflict? And to wrap today's journaling exercise off, I want to leave you with this quote. Healthy conflict is not the absence of disagreement, it's the presence of safety. It is two people who have decided that the relationship matters more than being right. I hope this journaling prompt helps you on your journey of healthy conflict resolution. Make sure you drop some comments in the comment section and tell me what came up during this exercise. And I'm going to talk to you all later.